One day, a hostile sultan sent Queen Tamar a letter proclaiming that every woman is weak in mind and demanded her surrender, intending to make her his concubine. Tamar's response was so terrifying it became unforgettable. Could a queen's fury change history and make an entire empire tremble? How could one person be both devout and benevolent, yet responsible for so many bloody battles? Born around 1160, Tamar hailed from an incredibly noble lineage, the Georgian dynasty, a genealogy that claimed to be second only to being descendants of Jesus Christ himself for Christians. Yet, despite being a Christian, Tamar did many things the Bible forbade. So what were these horrifying deeds? 1. Proclaiming herself King of Kings, shattering gender norms. In 1178, at just 18 years old, Tamar was appointed co-ruler by her father, a crucial step that made her the first queen of Georgia. But for Tamar, the title queen was simply not enough to define her stature and ambition. In an era where supreme power was almost exclusively reserved for men, and women were often seen merely as heirs or dependent consorts, Tamar made an audacious, almost unprecedented move. She had no intention of leaving any doubt about her intentions. She intended to rule completely, as a king. So what did she do to assert this position? Tamar began to call herself King of Kings. This wasn't just a title. It was a powerful declaration of power, a complete rejection of the deeply entrenched gender stereotypes of 12th century society. It challenged the traditional power structure, affirming her independent and supreme status, transcending the limited role a queen might typically hold. This wasn't just her first move, but also one of her boldest power plays, shaping her uncompromising style of rule later on. 2. How Tamar crushed rebellion's unyielding authority. When Tamar officially became queen, as often happens, those hungry for power began to emerge, seeking to strip her of her authority. One such individual was Kutlu, who attempted to form a council with the aim of making laws instead of allowing the queen to decide on her own. Kutlu's ambition was to establish a parallel government, pushing Tamar into a puppet role and controlling her power. However, as history has shown, those who opposed Tamar rarely came to a good end. Occasionally, when a man angered Queen Tamar, she would exile him to another country. This demonstrates that she was not afraid to use absolute power to decisively eliminate threats. Therefore, Kutlu, as the leader of the opposition, being merely detained and imprisoned, may have been a great favor to him, a relatively mild punishment compared to what she was capable of. Tamar didn't need to resort to immediate violence to assert her authority. She declared to Kutlu's faction that they should abandon their leader, give up, and go home. And surprisingly, they complied. This wasn't because she was showing off or flaunting her power. It was simply because she was the boss. However, this kindness didn't last. After Kutlu's faction went home, they unwisely changed their minds and demanded Tamar release Kutlu. Tamar was not intimidated by this challenge. Instead of sending an army or powerful men, she sent 2 noble women to negotiate with the rebels. Was this a profound act of sarcasm, a way for Tamar to subtly assert the authority of women in her dynasty, or an absolute confidence in the abilities of those she trusted? What these women said must have been truly terrifying, because afterward, the rebels knelt, swearing loyalty and obedience to the queen. They had planned to attack just moments before, but with mere words, Tamar's noble women made them surrender. This once again affirmed Tamar's wisdom and her ability to manipulate situations, showing that she was not just a ruler but also a brilliant strategist. As one historian remarked, Tamar was endowed with the intelligence and courage of a man. 3. A historically shocking divorce. When it came time for marriage, Tamar was not allowed to choose her own partner. As was customary, royal marriages were significant political arrangements decided by those in authority. Tamar's aunt chose H0rri, a prince described as handsome and perfect in physique. On paper, H0rri seemed an ideal choice for a royal marriage. But this marriage quickly turned into a living nightmare. H0rri was not only promiscuous and frequently drunk, but rumors widely spread that he was homosexual. This created a major conflict in a political marriage that inherently required procreation to ensure the lineage. H0rri became increasingly miserable in this marriage. In the 12th century, especially in the devout Christian kingdom of Georgia, divorce was unacceptable, even considered a grave sin and almost impossible to obtain. However, Tamar was not one to accept her fate or endure an unhappy marriage. She took a bold and unprecedented step. After 2 years of tumultuous marriage, she successfully persuaded the leaders of the Georgian Orthodox Church to grant her a divorce in 1187. How could a woman in that era convince rigid religious leaders to go against traditional canon law? That is certainly an incredible story of her perseverance, power, and undeniable charm. Even the religious leaders and nobles didn't reconsider this decision, which perhaps they should have, as it would soon come back to haunt them. 4. Exiling her ex-husband and facing 2 coups. After the shocking divorce, Tamar didn't merely sever ties with Uri. She arranged to exile her ex-husband Uri to Constantinople, 800 miles away, a completely different country where he would face a foreign language and culture. This was a strategic move, ensuring Uri couldn't cause trouble within her kingdom, and also a strong warning about the consequences of opposing the queen. Tamar enjoyed 3 years of peace without Uri. However, Uri was not one to give up easily or accept his banished fate. He tried twice to stage a coup against Tamar, hoping to regain his lost power and take revenge on the ex-wife who had rejected him. The first time, Tamar didn't even bother to imprison him, something she might have regretted later. This overconfidence shows she underestimated her enemy's persistence and hatred. Indeed, Uri failed both times in his attempts, but his continuous return served as a reminder of potential threats even after being removed. Uri's repeated attempts and failures suggest he was handsome but not smart, a weak individual despite his outwardly strong appearance. This is a dramatic story of betrayal and power, where a woman faced continuous challenges from men who sought to control her. It highlights Tamar's resilience and her ability to deal with threats decisively, though sometimes with decisions that she might later regret due to overconfidence. 5. Love and power. David Solin, the one who defeated her ex-husband. After continuous troubles with Uri, Queen Tamar found a new love and ally in David Solin, a young, handsome prince who was exceptionally skilled in combat. David was a pupil of Tamar's aunt, indicating a prior connection to the court. Tamar's marriage to David soon after, in 1189, may have been a perfect combination of emotion and strategy, ensuring she had the strongest and most devoted man by her side to consolidate her power. Prince David quickly proved his loyalty to the queen in a dramatic and effective way. David Solin helped Tamar defeat Uri and his rebels. What could be better than the prospect of your current husband not only loving you but also defeating your former husband, who had caused so much trouble and wanted to usurp your throne? This not only strengthened Tamar's position, but also showcased David's bravery and absolute devotion, transforming them into a new power couple on the rise, ready to shake the region. 6. Warrior Queen, ready to charge into battle. Tamar was not a queen who passively sat in her palace, directing from afar. She was a dynamic ruler, always demonstrating initiative and direct involvement in all aspects of her kingdom, especially military affairs. She frequently rode into battle with her soldiers and personally delivered inspiring speeches to her subjects before they went to war. Imagine a queen, in magnificent attire, standing in the midst of a battlefield, igniting the fighting spirit of her soldiers with passionate and determined words. A powerful and authoritative image, completely contrary to the weak image her enemies tried to impose on women. These speeches were clearly highly motivating because she achieved so many conquests. From passionate words, she translated them into concrete actions, expanding territory and consolidating Georgia's power as never before. Tamar proved that leadership does not depend on gender but on will, the ability to inspire, and decisiveness. 7. The money-making wrath of the Byzantine emperor. Queen Tamar was renowned for her generosity, frequently donating money to the poor and religious institutions both within and outside her kingdom. When she sent money to a group of monks in Constantinople to help them rebuild their burned monastery, an act of pure goodwill, the Byzantine Emperor Alexios III Angelus shamelessly confiscated the money for himself. This was an insult not only to Tamar and her generosity, but also a disregard for the church and the monks themselves. Tamar's reaction? Instead of sending a formal complaint or engaging in diplomatic negotiations, she took a direct and effective act of revenge, turning her anger into material gain. She targeted Alexios's territory in Trebizond, modern-day Turkey, and sent her army. Queen Tamar defeated him and seized part of his territory, then handed over rule to a cousin, strengthening her network of alliances and expanding Georgia's influence. This was not just mere revenge, it was a brilliant strategic move, turning an insult into an opportunity to expand influence and strengthen the kingdom remarkably. Tamar even sent more money to the monks, more than the initial confiscated amount. This story reveals that Tamar was not only generous but also a shrewd strategist, unafraid to use military might to defend her honor and interests. This is precisely a life shock and a hidden truth about how a queen could turn anger into power to make money and expand an empire. 8. Medieval Universal Basic Income Policy. Queen Tamar didn't need to study modern social sciences or economics to know that universal basic income, UBI, could actually improve the well-being of an entire nation. She implemented a policy that perhaps centuries later modern scholars would research and propose, demonstrating her far-sighted vision. She shared her wealth extensively, giving 10% of the country's total assets to the lower classes after cancelling their debts. What's astonishing is that these people didn't just receive a small amount of loose change, but a substantial sum enough to change their lives and significantly improve the overall economic situation. This shows Tamar's foresight and deep concern for her people, beyond just collecting taxes and maintaining order. This policy transformed Tamar's era into the golden age of Georgia, where peasants were like nobles, nobles like princes, and princes like kings. This demonstrates the unprecedented prosperity she brought to the kingdom. 9. Abolishing barbaric forms of torture. Despite being a formidable warrior queen who could lead bloody raids and conquests, Tamar also displayed a surprising side of humanity and justice. She understood that some forms of punishment were inhumane, brutal, and unfitting for a civilized and just kingdom. Therefore, Tamar made a bold decision, going against many cruel medieval practices. She abolished the worst forms of torture. This was not just a legal reform, but also a strong statement about the moral values of her reign, raising the standards of justice and compassion. This decision further enhanced her popularity among her subjects and neighboring countries, solidifying the image of a queen who was both powerful and benevolent. 10th bloody response to an insulter. When the neighboring Sultan, Sultan II, sent a letter declaring every woman is weak in mind and demanded Tamar surrender to become his concubine, it was an unacceptable insult to a powerful queen like Tamar. This was not just a personal affront, but a direct challenge to the authority and status of the Georgian kingdom. The rudeness of the letter angered one of her generals so much that he slapped the messenger unconscious. Tamar retaliated by destroying him. Queen Tamar's army, fueled by one of her inspiring speeches and led by her brilliant husband David, decimated Sultan I's army and seized his territory. This was not just a military victory, it was a bloody retribution, a clear and brutal declaration that no one could insult Queen Tamar without paying with their life and territory. Tamar didn't need to reply to the letter with words. She replied with swords and blood. 11th, canonized while alive, a unique adoration. Most saints are canonized after their death, once their actions and virtues have been verified over time and carefully recognized by the Church. This often takes years, even centuries. However, Queen Tamar was so revered that she was canonized while still alive. This demonstrates the extraordinary influence and absolute respect she commanded in her time, surpassing any other monarch. Being canonized while alive was not just a religious title, but also a symbol of supreme power, affirming her nearly divine status in the eyes of her subjects and the Church. This is very rare in history, and it shows that she was not only a political leader but also a spiritual icon, a figure considered to have divine grace. It proves that Tamar achieved a stature few monarchs could match, being recognized as a symbol of holiness and power while she was still living. 12th, Sudden death and mysterious tomb. In 1213, Queen Tamar suddenly fell ill during a business meeting at her summer residence. She died at the age of 53. While 53 is normal today, in the 12th century, it was equivalent to 75, a remarkable lifespan for that era. Her death was a great shock to her subjects, as she was still at the peak of her power and career, showing no signs of weakening. Even stranger, her final resting place remains a mystery to this day. Many believe her burial site was intentionally kept secret, perhaps to protect the tomb from looters or historical enemies who wished to desecrate her legacy. Scholars and pilgrims have searched, but no one has found Queen Tamar's true tomb. To this day, her grave remains one of the greatest mysteries of Georgian history. Were there secrets buried with her, something too horrifying to ever be revealed? Or was it simply a random event of time? Which story surprised you the most? What do you want to delve deeper into? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. We always want to hear from you. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more unique and dramatic historical stories from Mr. Q. See you in the next video, where we will continue to uncover the hidden truths behind history.